But are you gonna build the house? Yeah, just go to the, to the biggest to the store and buy the two biggest jar of headache medication that you can pick. And he says, why two? I said, and he says, if because you're gonna go through the first one, but if you open the second one, you're in trouble.
Right.
So that's we luckily enough we still have the second intact, and we haven't gone through much of the first one yet.
Welcome to Expats Like Us, a co-production with Me Vida Margarita, exploring the world of U.S. expat life in Mexico. In each episode, we'll meet new people and hear their stories. We'll also learn more about expat life and get a few tips on everything from making your move to settling in to living your dreams. And most of all, having fun. Let's dive in. Welcome to Expats Like Us. I'm your host, Bob Bussey.
And I'm Chris Kowalski.
We're happy to welcome our friends and neighbors Walter Vetterell and Shawnee Lanceedle to this week's edition of Expats Like Us. Like many of us, Walter and Shawnee sold their home a couple of years ago and said adios to snow and cold, for them it was Western Canada, to make their home in Mexico. However, instead of buying a condo or an existing house, they bought an unfinished lot and embarked on an adventure of building in Mexico. Hi, Walter and Shawnee, and welcome to Expats Like Us.
Hello, thank you.
It's good to have you. Thanks for coming today. So tell us a little bit about your life in Canada before your move here.
Sure. So career-wise, I worked mostly in banking. And then I moved into working for the Ministry of Agriculture. That was for the provincial government.
Okay.
Walter it was a self-employed electrician, and he worked also for SkyTrain, which is a rapid transit system in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland in British Columbia, Canada. And so we had met about 11 years ago and discovered that we had some common interests. We ended up deciding to buy an acreage. And the reason that came about is one of our earlier dates that we had. I invited Walter over for dinner.
Okay.
I had a meatloaf that was wrapped in bacon that was ready for the oven.
That's the way to a man's heart, actually, right?
Walter says that was a good start. And then I asked him, well, would you like a salad with dinner? And he said, sure. I head out to grab my hat, grab my basket, head out to the backyard, pick some lettuce and all sorts of things for a salad out of my garden, came back in, and he was shocked. He thought I was going to go to the fridge, not to the garden. And so that's when we kind of started to realize that, this is becoming a common interest. We want to do more creating, more planning, bring, maybe even do a larger garden at some point. And as we got to know each other better, we found this acreage. That acreage was transformed into really a small farm. We had 27 fruit trees, 18 berry bushes, 20 raised garden beds, a greenhouse. We were really looking at ways to sustain ourselves with produce, between storing that produce and I'm a canner, so preserving as well. And so as we were, getting to know each other, transforming the land, and sitting every Saturday morning with our coffee and our paper and pencil and designing different things in the yard, we just were able to enjoy those 10 years together. And then after 2019, our interests went south, literally.
So was there something that precipitated that, or what made you decide to move?
Yeah, so in 2019, we actually went to Mexico, to this Riviera side of Mexico. And this kind of leads us into the next question, really. Why did we choose the Riviera Maya? Why did we choose to come south?
Yeah.
So for many years, I've traveled to Mexico, mostly the West Coast side, because that's, where I live most of my life.
Easiest, closest place between 2 points.
Exactly.
Right.
Super easy, a 4.5 hour plane ride. Very, very simple. And then after Walter and I met, we continued to travel down to Mexico. And one of the usual normal conversations we would have on the plane ride coming home was, would you want to live in Mexico? Would you want to do the 6 month thing after we retire? And the answer was always, yeah. But nothing really spoke to us on that side of Mexico. So we decided, okay, let's meet up with Walter's brother on the other side of Mexico, because in proximity to where his brother and wife live, it made more sense to come to this side of Mexico. And I fell fast in love with this side of Mexico. I could not believe how beautiful it was. So before long, we were talking to a realtor in the clubhouse, and the realtor went around and showed us condos, townhomes, already built homes. And then he just happened to be talking with Walter and said, yeah, and I just bought a lot here. Well, then Walter's ears just perked up, and he thought, "Wow, this is interesting. Can you take me to where you bought your lot?" And so we had a look at his lot, and we got a plan of the residential area that was most attractive to us. And then we found ourselves at our favorite beach one day, and Walter says to me, "So, between a scale of 1 to 10, where are you in terms of living here full time? After we retire, just live here full time." And I said, without hesitation, I'm at about a 9. And Walter says, "Holy cow!"
Right, that's pretty high on the scale.
Pretty high. And he says, "Wow, I was only at a 5."
So did that raise you up to about a 7 or 8 then?
Absolutely. I was just sold right there. And the lot, at the time, we were not retired yet. And so with the purchase of the lot, it kind of gave us the time, frame in order to go back, think about retirement, start rearranging everything in Canada. And then, so because just the lot was empty, and stay there, it could have stayed longer. But then something, COVID hit, and that's kind of the decision was made. Say, okay, yeah.
That's a common theme amongst literally everybody that we've talked to is, well, we were doing this and that, and we were thinking of moving, and then COVID hit. That is a common thing with everybody.
Yeah, so
that really affected a lot of people.
Yeah, well, it made you rethink a lot. Like we were working from home at one point, and then decided, well, this is just we need a change, and
Right.
so yeah, in 2022, February 2022, we were here. We had started the design of the house, and that was a project on itself. Every Saturday and Sunday morning was lots of fun.
Yeah, back to the paper.
Yeah, and we already had all the paperwork done when we got here for designing and approvals from the country club, not from the city or the state or so. And then the whole other episode of the it started something like we then we find out all the requirements that we're going to be talking about in a minute. Just
Yeah.
So what made you guys decide, most of us come down here, Chris and I, and, we came down here, bought a condo, that's it. Here we are. Was it because you guys had a big lot and you were used to the space?
That has quite a bit to do with it. We wanted to have some space. I'm I'm a hands-on type of person, and I needed a project. I mean, I wasn't coming here to be just to drink margaritas
Uh-huh.
on the beach, and
Sure.
so I don't know. We liked that part. It was going to be our home. We want to have a lot of input. We had family. We were planning for guests and family to stay with us, and so yeah, that was the idea. Um,
Have a little bit more control, over the building of the house, have more control in having as many solar panels as we want, have a water source like a cistern. Those things were important, and then have a large garden. As you heard earlier, I'm an avid gardener, so
yeah, so we haven't put that in practice yet. We still at the last stages of the house and the build and the garden, and so we still have that to be said. What type of fruits and vegetables are we gonna be growing up?
How long have you been in the project as far as once they started construction until this point?
Yeah, that's it is a year of construction.
Okay.
A lot of builders will tell you that is between 8 months to a year. It can be built in 8 months, a year now, and it's gonna take us a little bit longer to finish because we are in the finishing stages. And if you rush, then your quality could be
Goes down.
goes down a little. So you have to. I mean, we are having more control on the finishing and the details, and yeah, it's when is it gonna be finished completely with the last picture on the wall? Yeah, that's gonna be a process. It's
10, 15 years from now.
yeah, it's gonna be 2 days before we sell it. No.
that's pretty normal.
There you go. That's how that works.
So anyhow,
Yeah.
go ahead.
And then what we didn't anticipate was the amount of administration work, not only that pertained to the house, but also for us. We had to take time to open a bank account, buy a car so we get out of a rental car, to the deed,
License.
the driver's license, and then also making sure that the deed got transferred into our names. So
That was-
there was a lot of administration work.
That was one of the something that one of the big differences. Usually, that process in Canada or the U.S. takes 2 to 3 days, the most, and here it took us 7 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to start building without with a lot under our name. So but it allowed us to really enjoy the lifestyle that we were planning, meeting extremely good people and friends, and by the poolside here in this neighborhood, and we we had to learn the process of opening a bank account and going back and forth 3 or 4 times to do certain things like paperwork. I was at one point Shawnee started calling me one piece of paper short Walter because
Somebody went to license your car with you, right?
yeah, so it was always a one piece of paper short. But go ahead.
But there was definitely a large learning curve to ride, and that year allowed us to do that.
To do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of universal for everybody that moves down here. Those things we all have to do. And that's kind of been a theme on here about what we love and what we hate about that sort of things.
Yeah.
You guys just have the whole concept of building the house as well, So tell me a little bit about How does construction here differ than what you were used to in Canada?
Yeah, you know, first of all, we got to, we can't take the whole country. Mexico is a big country. We are in a very fast-growing area. It's one of the most expensive part of Mexico to build, and with all the mega projects that happening or happened around us in the 2023, have put a lot of strain in the labor market and the materials. So yeah, that's like that would make it a little bit more difficult. And but the difference was the first one to me is the bureaucratic, like the 7 months to get the deed, the permits process, the three levels of government that you had to deal, and how, uh, for example, here in Tulum, there is no inspections. The city, neither the state, does inspections, for example, like we had in Canada, plumbing, electrical, building, structural, and so on. There's not uh, basically a government or agency to control the type of build. So the owner has to be aware, and he has to get involved to make to get what you really want. In order to, there are reputable construction companies and engineers and architects, but the ultimate, if you want a well-built home, I think it's a good idea to get in, to follow the process of the build. And even though that may be discouraged for somebody that would like to build, and says, no, I don't want to get involved in the build of my house, you had to be aware that every house that is already built has gone through the same system. So there is, that what type of product are you going to get at the end?
Right.
So
do you think that a lot of people come down here and don't realize that and just kind of find because a contractor is going to say,
Don't worry
I'll
about
build it.
it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Come back in a year and you can move in your beautiful home.
That's correct.
And I imagine that can be an issue.
They have a term for that, and it's key in hand. They have key in hand. So
Okay.
they have it. This is, you just sign the contract, and we'll build your house. For me, particularly, that has a lot of variables, to say the least. I mean, what type of faucet are you gonna provide?
Right.
What type of finishing? What type of electrical? And or plumbing, and so on. So they are good contractors here, very responsible, good work, and but at the same time, you have some of them that they will try to cut corners, and sometimes there is not a really something that is in their control. For example, one of the issues that we had in 2023, and you follow that closely, it was the peso gaining strength over the dollar.
Right.
So that was 10-15% with the Canadian dollar. So suddenly you sign a contract in US, and now you get 15 or to 20% or 15% less pesos. So the contractor is going to say, well, something had to move in that. So sometimes there are things that are away from the control of the both parties. I mean, the builder and the owner. So yeah, that happened, and so we'll.
I can see that's something that people wouldn't think about, the fluctuation in the exchange rate and just the money issues that we have fluctuates
Fluctuates,
all the
Exactly.
time.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
even more than just the interest rate, but also Walter mentioned earlier about how the price of materials can change. The minimum wage rate can go up.
Right.
So these things can increase while the builder is trying to build your home.
Right.
Back in Canada, when you sign for a contractor to build your home, because they can build homes quicker in Canada, based on our experience so far,
Right.
in comparison here. That fluctuation doesn't play in as much.
Right.
But here that has been
Right. It swings all over the place
It's-
here,
it
I mean,
has.
I think all of us have experienced that, but we're not committed to a really big home or a nice home, like you guys
Yeah.
are, but we've all experienced that in the last year or so here.
What about corruption as far as government officials wanting to bribe to get things done quicker? Or did you come across anything like that?
You come across that, but everything can be avoided. You can one thing in my favor, I had to say, the language. I'm fluent in Spanish, and that have I can go and talk to the people in the city if I need to. So it happens, but it's for me, what is it? Not so much, the cost of the permit, because I mean, in Vancouver, 60% of the cost of the building a house is permits and paperwork. So it's pretty high, and so we don't call it corruption. We just call it that is
That's
the
how it
law,
works.
How it
Right.
works. Yeah.
Right.
So here is, that's what I don't really lean on that word, because it is the cost. For me, it's like I would like to see more improvements in the city roads, the lighting, that type of thing, where the money goes more than anything else.
Right.
No. Yeah.
It is true. I mean, we've had to pay several times, to get something done, and it's not just to get it done quicker. It's you pay this incentive, and it's. But like Walter says, when you compare it to the cost of permits to build in Canada, it's relative, because it's relative.
Sure. So, Walter, with your background in construction and your fluency in Spanish your first language, I'm
Yes, it
assuming,
is. Yeah.
and understanding of Latin American culture, probably more than a lot of us, I'm guessing that makes the process a little easier than it would be for just, some gringo that just stepped off the plane and decided to build a building.
No, actually, my learning curve was, after 38 years in Canada, I had a little bit of a learning curve. But, for people that would like to come and build, I have an analogy. I mean, I've seen the people that come here, very successful professionals, business people, and they have a life experience, a huge life experience. So you're a good tennis tennis player, and you're used to play in a rectangular court. Well, here the court is a big circle. So you're gonna have to adapt your game.
Right.
That's it's simple. I mean, you're gonna what I might advise to whoever decide to take that is to do your homework, ask a lot of questions, listen to podcast, find out who is the good reputable contractors, go see their work, find out that they need to like how the payment system works. Don't find out that a contract doesn't have the weight that it used to have in Canada or the US. So those little things, and they are people that they're honest, hardworking people that will follow, that will help you out. That way, we were lucky to find them, And so I cannot say that our experience have been terrible. We had the normal hiccups that anybody building a house would have. A good old friend of mine, a contractor, used to say, "But are you gonna build the house? Yeah, just go to the, to the biggest to the store and buy the two biggest jar of headache medication that you can pick." And he says, "Why two?" I said, and he says, "If because you're gonna go through the first one, but if you open the second one, you're in trouble."
Right.
So that's we luckily enough we still have the second intact, and we haven't gone through much of the first one yet. So, but there are hiccups. I mean, so it's expected, and
And
here
being
kind of.
Yeah, and in being adaptable, I think is something that has helped us a lot because, yeah, you're gonna run into problems. It's inevitable, but it's really how you deal with them, and if you can just kind of keep a cool head and be flexible and adaptable, that that has helped us
That's
all
another.
along.
There's one saying that is being used here: the ones that get angry loses. So you have to have a lot of patience. There are ways to resolve every problem, and some people decided different ways, but most of the people that we have encountered, it's professional and they realize. I mean, everybody tries to make a buck, which is normal.
Yeah, just like everywhere in the world.
Exactly.
So looking back on the process so far, is there anything you wish that you'd known that you could have maybe headed off some issues going into this, or is there any kind of advice that you would give expats that are considering doing this?
Can I take that? Sure. I knew very well that the three rules of constructions apply here: quality, cost, and time. There are three variables that you can't get them all. Because in the time factor, it was the one that really is taking a little longer than expected. I thought the process was going to be a little bit quicker. So there was a cost of renting at the time, and so that's what the push, and we tried to speed up the process. And then, of course, you start losing quality. So that's what, if I had an advice, is just like when you go traveling, they tell you take double the money and half the clothes. Here, calculated double the time. Time is going to be, especially if you're going to be here watching the build and you had to rent as well. So that was one of the variables that it would be nice to shorten it up, but as I said, you lose control on the quality and the cost. So
Be patient.
be patient. Yeah.
So Shawnee, tell us, in your opinion, what's something that you would have been you want people to be aware of, or would you have done differently? Not necessarily in just building the house, but in becoming an expat in Mexico.
Right. Wow, there's probably so many learnings there to share, right? But to maybe keep it in line with the house, I would say that one thing that was the biggest surprise to me was the amount of administration that was needed to build the house. And we actually interviewed 7 builders before we picked one, and none of them had mentioned anything about the permit, how much the permit was going to cost at the city Tulum, and for that matter, how much any of the other permits. And there's many permits that you are responsible for, the builder is responsible for, and so that once we kind of we kept track of our budget the whole way through, and when I see that figure that went to just administration, it was shocking. And to be honest with you, we did not factor that in to, to the build of our home.
Right. And how would you? You didn't know about it.
Didn't know about it. So I would definitely want to know that in advance, that,
That's
maybe sometimes the builder will include that in, but it's a good question to ask, is it built in, or are you going to be coming to me for this large permit price, to get the plans even approved by the city. So
there you have it.
Yes.
That's words to live by for people thinking about building a house, because I can see getting caught in that and your budget's tight and oh my God.
yeah, definitely.
The builders will talk about square meters, the cost per square meter, like in the US and Canada. But all that administration cost is aside, and it's kind of a gray area so you're completely right. I mean, it's that was a little bit of a wake up call.
Yeah.
And what kind of percentage are you talking? Like 10% of the overall cost, 5%, 25%?
Yeah, we're talking about
1/5. Would you say?
Yeah,
20%.
Yeah.
but
20%
Close
for
to 20.
administrative.
Close
Wow.
to 20. Yeah.
20%.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us where you're at with your project now. I know where it is, but tell our viewers, you guys are living
Yes,
in your house and it's not fully done
it's
yet.
not completely done. We have the minimum requirements: a working swimming pool, the air conditioner where we are. That's but
A working kitchen.
yeah, no,
We have odd priorities. We have the pool finished before we have the downstairs done.
Well, there's restaurants around here. And
So we are 85% or
Okay.
close, and we are working on the outside of the house and finishing. There's some requirements that we have to comply with, some rock and some colors theme that we've got approved, doing the driveway, that type of thing.
Okay. So, Shawnee, we play a game. I don't know if you guys have listened to previous podcasts, but we call it Que Padre, Que Malo. Que Padre is things that you think are cool. Que Malo, things that you don't like so much or still adapting to. Give me one of each for you personally.
Okay, well, I have listened to previous podcasts, and I probably agree with pretty much all the Que Padres that you've come up with so far, right? Like the weather, the people, the healthcare, the accessibility to good healthcare and affordability. So many of them, lifestyle. And so for me, it narrowed down to lifestyle. I had a certain type of lifestyle that I wanted to, I was hoping to be able to live in my retirement. And I knew that I was not going to be able to have that lifestyle in Canada. What I was looking for was a slower pace. I was looking to meeting people from all over the world who had like-minded ideas as myself and weren't living in fear,
Right.
I was looking at hoping to find a place that was more affordable, let my retirement dollars go a little bit further. And the other two things that were really important to me is, I've lived in Canada my whole life. And I have seen the laws getting tighter, the rules getting more prevalent, the
More
regulations,
all-encompassing, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Losing freedoms, personal.
Right,
Really,
right.
I mean, I feel like I have become more regulated by the governments, and I've been to Mexico several times. I knew that it was a freer sort of life. Yes, there's laws, there's rules, there's regulations here. I'd say there's a bit more common sense here, and that was a huge attraction for me. So I appreciate that, and I really appreciate the healthcare system here. One thing that I was suffering from when living in Canada during COVID is all of a sudden I didn't get to control my own healthcare anymore. That wasn't my choice
Right.
anymore.
Right.
And I fortunately, knock on wood, have been a healthy individual most of my life, and because I have controlled that. And so, my que padre is I get to have control of my health again, and if and I can have affordable, accessible healthcare here, and
Right. So what are you still adapting to? Or what have you not liked so much?
the language.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've told Walter, I do not want to live in Mexico, for the rest of my life and not know Spanish.
Right.
I must learn to speak Spanish. And it embarrasses me that I have a fluent Spanish speaking husband. I have no excuse, but I do have a 62-year-old mind. And I
Right.
find
It's
it
not like being 3 years old and you
challenging.
naturally pick up language. Yeah.
It is hard.
If-
I find it extremely hard. So that's something I just wish I could I dream a genie and blink and I
Yep.
know the language in a heartbeat. But I know that's not going to happen. And I have to grow patience. We talked about patience earlier. I really need to grow patience and realize that it just is persistence. And I do persist and I am getting better. And I will continue to try, but it comes with
It's
challenge.
very tough. If someone would have told me that I would know as little Spanish as I do after living in Mexico for almost 3 years, I'd have thought you were nuts. We all think it's going to absorb into our brains, and
Osmosis.
some does, but not enough,
Sometimes having a Spanish-speaking spouse makes it easy to get away with not speaking.
Right. It gives you an excuse. You don't have to struggle for dear life when you're out doing something.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, Walter, same question to you. Give me a que padre and a que malo.
For me, it's the same coin with both sides of the coin. Being more relaxed into regulations and being relaxed into an easy lifestyle. Being not so many controls in government or just the society in general being with so many rules and regulations. And on the other side of that particular coin, you have the lack of let's see, you see more potholes on the street. You see, holes that they have nobody put a piece of wood, and it's in the middle of the night, and somebody might fall, and so it's the same thing the other way. That you have the lack of signage, or the lack of more bylaws, or
Right.
in order to make it more orderly. But at the same time, I really enjoy the freedom to have that. The other day, somebody was stopped with no seatbelt, and the police asked him to put on the seatbelt, and suddenly you have this pickup truck with 20 or 30 workers
standing on the highway in the back of the truck.
So,
That's great.
Yeah,
how do they get by with that?
I think the answer of the police officer was they're special.
Yeah, I think so.
And I have to add for Walter, the weather. And the reason I have to add this is because I can't tell you how many times a week I am showed the weather app and what it's doing in Canada and how cold it is and how much snow is falling.
And
so
I have to add one more to you that you miss completely, is the food.
The food.
The food is
I'm a foodie.
Amazing, amazing food.
Yes, food.
And so many options around here. It's just insane.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And well, thank you very much for having us. If anybody else need more help with building, or any suggestions that we can help, please, they can contact you and
send us an email at expatslikeus@gmail.com, and we will pass it on to you or share it with you.
absolutely.
Get us on Facebook.
Yeah, or Facebook, or we're on TikTok now. I don't quite understand it, but we are.
We don't know how long that'll last.
Right. I don't even know what it is. But,
You need to add a 14-year-old.
Find us there.
Right.
You need to add a 14-year-old to your crew.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Well, Walter and Shawnee, thank you so much for sharing your story of building a home in Mexico and for the great tips and insights you provided. We'll look forward to your housewarming party in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thank you, guys. In each episode of Expats Like Us, we're going to teach you a new Mexican slang word. This is something you may not find in your phrasebook or your online Spanish class or your Spanish app or wherever you're learning your Spanish. Instead, this is a term used primarily by Mexican Spanish speakers. Today's word is
Tocayo.
tocayo. How do you spell that?
Tocayo.
Okay, tocayo. What does tocayo mean?
It's a nickname given to anyone who shares your first name.
Okay, so that would be like, geez, I can't think of an English word that would be that equivalent.
Yeah, I don't think there is one.
That is a slang word.
It sure is.
All right, thank you very much. Erica Kowalski from Mi Vida Margarita. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic. Just look up Expats Like Us on Facebook or send us an email at expatslikeus@gmail.com. You can also see the video version of today's discussion and all of our discussions on our YouTube page. Follow, like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thank you to our guests, Walter Vittorell and Shawnee Landseidel, for joining us for this episode. And thanks to our team, Chris and Erica Kowalski and Sherry Bussey. And thanks especially to all our viewers and listeners. And thanks to everyone who interacts with us on social media. I'm Bob Bussey. Until next time, remember, our lives are not defined by geography or our physical location, but by memories, events, people, and places that span the globe.